Page, connecting you with your community. Welcome back to Loretta's Front Page, coming to you for Waterrun Country. I hope that you have been enjoying the program so far. It's Women's Health Week this week, and we're going to focus about September. That I've been chatting about for the rest of the month to help raise awareness of women's mental health in Australia.
Oh, I can't remember anything.
Now we come to the Making Life Better segment. And it's an absolute pleasure to welcome back to the studio after a little bit of a break. Thanks, Hugo. Welcome back. Do you know what? I think I have got the right mic for you. It's okay. Hey, it's good to be back.
That's what I love to find chicks doing awesome things in all different parts of the world, whether that be the arts, whether that be in social justice, whether that be in business, whether that be, health, all the places. So, which leads me very nicely into a brand new podcast that is about to be launched, celebrating the voices and stories of regional Victorian women with disabilities. Now, from within regional homes, in the workplace, concert halls, sporting clubs, local pubs, rural communities, there are unique stories unfolding. Stories that are fascinating and humble, just as the women who are writing them, and in their own way, on their own terms. These stories are taking place away from the metropolitan lights and the mainstream headlines. These identities are rarely featured on the silver screen, small or handheld, yet one of my guests actually does have her own YouTube, so you can check her out there. Yet they have always been there, an understated chorus of strength and individuality. And now, with the launch of the new podcast series, these individual voices are being amplified across the world and together will boom from the outskirts. That's the name of the podcast, people. A curious and kind contemporary and stalwart of local radio, interviewer Liz Wright is welcomed with vulnerability and pride into the homes, the safe spaces of 12 exceptional women from the state's borders to the peninsula. In Series 1 of the podcast, created by Peak Body, the Victorian Women's with Disability Victoria, it introduces listeners to musicians, mothers, partners, artists and change makers. Also different, yet united by their experience of the world around them. From the Outskirts will be launched as a podcast on platforms from September 9th, and I am so excited that from the 12 women that are featured in this podcast, 2 of them are joining me today, and 2 of them are from the Ballerine. Whoop, whoop. I'll just give a little bit of a regional shout out there, which is fantastic. So joining me today, I have Leanne Watson and Bree-Arne Manley, who are here with me to talk about their experience of this amazing podcast. Bree-Arne, I'm gonna start with you first and bring you on. Congratulations on being part of the podcast.
Thank you. It was my pleasure.
That's great. Leanne, I've got you on the phone, and congratulations also for being part of the podcast.
Thank you. It was a really good fun afternoon, actually.
Oh, that's great. Leanne, I am going to ask, you've got I think you've got me in the background. No, it's good now. The echo's gone. Leanne, question without notice. What was it like having Liz and the crew come into the home with their recording gear?
Oh, fun. It was great. I like welcoming people anyway, and as actually what came of it as I was starting to talk with Liz, and Liz is very people-oriented and very interested in people's stories. I realised, I've always realised just how entwined my story is with my husband's. So he ended up being a little guest attendee on that episode.
Oh, I love it.
It was great fun. They were lovely. Little glass of afternoon wine and a few laughs, and it was good.
You got it done. And Bree-Arne, was yours also a little afternoon wine and a few laughs?
Well, I actually got them to come and sit in my music room because they I don't know where to set up. I said, well, come into my space.
Yeah.
Where it's all soundproofed and ready to go. And I said, do you need a mic? They've got their own mics. And yeah.
There's not too many people that you go to their house to do a podcast and you're like, come into my soundproof room where I've got it all happening here.
Yes, it was pretty much just like welcome to my humble abode.
Bree-Arne, let's start with you. Obviously, on the podcast, you share your story. Can you
Yes.
share that with us today?
Sure, I've done it a million times before, but what's
What's a
another
million
one?
and one?
What's a million and one? I was diagnosed with multiple sclerosis when I was 19 years old. So I had 9 months of poking and prodding and needles and what is going on? Do I have a brain tumour? I can't see out of this eye and then this eye. So my left eye and then my right eye and then my left eye again. And there was nothing else wrong with me except for just the feeling that something was wrong and I couldn't see properly. And they just said, we think you've got MS. After all the MRIs and all the tests, and I just thought that was really rude.
Really?
I was so fit. I was the fittest person in my school. I swam. I was just really on my game to have this massive full life. And then that happened. That's so just not on.
And so 19, as you say, were you heading off to uni?
No, I didn't know what I wanted to do with myself. I just wanted to grab everything in the world and eat it all up. I just wanted to try everything. I mean, that's what actually me and Kirsty were talking about in the hallway, was I'm an experienced collector. I just
Nice.
liked a bit of everything. I'll try anything at least once.
Oh, I like it. And so your journey then with MS, you're a little older than 19 now.
Yes, I'm nearly 38. But shh.
We're not telling nobody. Just between you and me and a few other listeners here.
Yeah.
What's life look like for you now?
It's brilliant. I've got the most loving, adoring husband and 2 kids who I love spending time with, and they're just amazing. And I've got a house in Point Lonsdale.
Woo-hoo.
And I'm just an adventurer, and I go rock climbing twice a week and swimming, and I don't care that I'm disabled. I do whatever I want.
Love that. Leanne, are you nodding over there on the telephone?
Yes, I am. How did you guess?
Yeah. Well, I just thought, Ainsley's over here. You want to say something too?
No, I was gonna say,
Turn it up. Yeah. So, Leanne, I'm going to come to you. Leanne, I did say in the preamble that, it's Bellarine Chicks Unite. You're down the Bellarine
Yes.
too. Can you share with us some of the story that you share on the podcast episode?
Yes, I will. I don't have a studio in my house, unfortunately, and I'm not anywhere near as adventurous as Bree-Arne. Never have been, but my story is adult onset disability of probably a muscular dystrophy of some sort, most likely limb girdle, but where there's various places around the world, including Perth and Boston Children's Hospital, trying to figure out just what it is. And it's meant a decline since my early 40s. Since that was when I was diagnosed anyway. Probably the decline started mid-30s with the muscle loss till now I'm 58, and it's advanced way more rapidly than they said I would. So I'm pretty well, I guess, profoundly disabled. I can't use I can't feed myself. Almost now impossible to feed myself unless I'm positioned, completely perfectly in front of my table that I can raise, and my chair is kind of, tilted and tipped and, mucked around with that way. So it's been a really interesting journey for me and my family, and especially my husband. So it's been, but we're still trying to do everything, fit everything in. And we made the change. I was back in Melbourne for quite a few years, or we were, and we always wanted to move back here. We'd lived here 20 years ago for a few years, and we always wanted to move back as, retirement or as we got a bit older, but we decided that now is the time. If not now, when will we do it? So,
that's so true.
Yeah.
Can I ask, Leanne, back when you were looking at your diagnosis in your early 40s, did you put things down to menopause, like changes and things? Was that sort of an early it must be, perimenopausal, or were there things that were going on that that were sort of clouded maybe by your age?
Maybe. I went through early menopause when I was 31, and I just wasn't sure what was going on and whether it was to do with the hormones that, because they'd told me to stay on the pill for that, for the next 10 years, or from my 30s at least, to keep the estrogen going. So I did actually wonder. There were a few, symptoms that happened that normally happen to 70, plus year old women, kind of thing. I kind of I thought that, and then I got diagnosed and realised it's all to do with muscle loss and muscle weakness, that a lot of my problems,
And
so, the issues.
So Leanne, when the Victorian Women's with Disabilities group, when they reach out to you and say, hey, we'd like to feature you on a podcast, what was your initial thoughts?
Well, I've got a website, I write a blog and, try and sort of advocate, in my little way on the socials and that sort of thing. I started that up in 2017 when the effects were really, when I was thinking what can I do with my life now kind of thing. So I was always of the attitude that I just need to keep telling people that, what I've got, how life is lived as a disabled person, that we've still got all the same rights and that things can change and attitudes in particular need to change and infrastructure and all that sort of thing. Just all of a sudden not being able to take for granted so many things made me realise that, and I'd never had anything to do with disability, just made me realise that, it's kind of, I felt like almost an obligation to share that with everyone who at this stage has not had anything to do with disability, but also other people like me with disability who may not be quite as extrovert or, want to share their information. It might just give them a little bit of solace to, just know they're not alone in the journey.
Yeah, and I wonder, Bree-Arne, that feeling of people not feeling like they're alone, was that also part of the motivation for you to share your story?
Yes, because like I was also saying before, I have no filter and I'm out there with everything. If someone asks me something, the truth is easier to remember. So I will just blurt out whatever. I'm just open book with them.
Do I need to have the dump button ready just in case you do a few expletives?
No, I've already reminded myself, no talk about this and this and this. And
it's a safe space. It's a safe
yes,
space.
it is.
So Bree-Arne, why was it important for you to be on the podcast or to be part of the project?
Well, really, they just asked if I wanted to do it, and I just jump in head first because that's
you're an experience collector.
That's what I do. I love meeting new people as well, so I get to meet you and
Ainsley,
and I already know Kirsty, but I just got to meet Liz, and she's lovely, and I've found she's done she's worked with her council. I'm working with my council down in Queenscliff, and I've joined what I've officially labelled as the Ledgers, because we're a bunch of legends. The Lived Experience Disability Group. And I can help guide them and tell them what needs fixing and help them.
So is that the Borough of Queenscliff you're working with?
Yeah.
In an advocacy role. Ainsley, you've been involved. Have you been involved in the City of Greater Geelong advocacy group?
So I was a member of the Access and Inclusion Advisory Committee for a couple of years.
Right. Awesome. Leanne, do you have advocacy in your blood too?
It's growing. I never really did. It's been quite a reinvention of who I thought I was, I guess, from my early 40s. So I am a bit more in Melbourne. I was part of a couple of committees to do with disability through the council, disability advocacy. I was part of a campaign they had as well for I can't quite remember what it's called now, but it was just highlighting people with disability, like, this is where I live or this is me. Can't quite remember. It was a good little tagline, but it was put on, posters on bus stops and things like that.
Did it feel like when you're part of that group that
that change was being made? Like, were you listened to? That's what I want to know. Were you listened to?
I think so. I feel like there were a couple of things. Especially there was one project to do with gentrifying a certain suburb, and they seemed to take seriously some of our suggestions. So I haven't actually followed that through to see what came to fruition, but you're right. That is definitely a great big problem that you wonder whether they just have people with disabilities and just to tick a box.
Yeah, a bit of tokenism. Yep.
Yeah, exactly. So that's a bit of a problem. But yeah, I think, and WDV are fantastic advocates. They're just so wonderful with with the programs they've got going, and for young women and all women of all ages, but young women in particular as well, and empowerment programs. And I was about to join one when I was in Melbourne, one of the WDV hubs, and then we moved down to Bellarine not long after I made that decision. So I was connected to Deb Haygarth, who was she led the Barwon Hub until recently, and I've just loved it. It's been a really fabulous time. So I've changed my mosaics classes and things for disability friendship groups, and they're just lovely. Great bunch of people.
Yeah,
great bunch of women.
Women with Disabilities Victoria, as you say, WDV.
Yes.
They're an amazing, passionate organisation that run, really worthwhile events and and things and webinars and education, and there's so much that they do. And they've produced this podcast. Now, it's coming out on the 9th of September. There's 12 episodes. I don't know if they're going to release them all in one go. Do we know? Or
they're having a launch
in Bendigo.
Yep. But I can't make it because it's my husband's birthday weekend.
Oh, there you
I'm
go.
Going.
Oh, you're going, Leanne?
Yep.
All right, you're going to go represent the Bellarine for us.
Yes, you can represent.
Yes, I can. Yeah, I'll do my bit for you, Bree-Arne.
Thank you.
Love it.
Coffee. You owe me a coffee somewhere.
Yeah, they totally do. We're going to continue to have a chat to Bree-Arne and Leanne. We're just going to have a few community service announcements, and then we'll be right back.
That's what we should have done.
You can hear a little bit, can't you? You can hear a little bit. I saw you at the wave pool.
By encouraging innovation,
I've done that.
Urban surf.
Challenges,
Yeah. It's always really annoying. The lifeguards freak out
As the region
on the side of the pool more than the ones in the tower, because they're starting to know me now, and they're like, no, she's all right.
Do you go surfing down at Point Lottie?
Yes, every now and then at Front Beach, and Lachlan's taken me out at Back Beach once.
And that station is 94.7 The Pulse. We are back, and I give a big shout out this morning to Outskirts, From the Outskirts, which is a podcast that's being released this September the 9th, which I think must be Saturday, all throughout, wherever you find good podcasts. It's a podcast that has been developed by Women with Disabilities Victoria, and I'm very, very happy to be having two of those women who are featured in the podcast with me this morning. Bree-Arne and Leanne, welcome back.
Hi.
Oh, funny. I was really keen to have a conversation with you both about your interests, just to give us a bit more of an insight into you. Bree-Arne, you said that you're an experience collector.
Yeah.
And you have a YouTube channel that I have been, having a look at and seeing some of the experiences that you do. Can you give us a bit of a taste? What do you love to do?
I love surfing and rock climbing and abseiling over waterfalls, and for some reason, some people just like me walking upstairs.
They like watching that.
Walking up and down stairs, and I keep getting requests to just walk up a set of stairs. I was like, really? That's what you like?
Why do you think people like that?
Maybe it's because they can't do it, or they just see someone struggling, just going for it.
Ainsley, do you have an opinion why people like to watch Bree-Arne walk these steps?
Please, enlighten me.
Yeah, I said to you earlier, it's that people like to see people struggle.
But that sounds like a bad thing.
I know. But I've written blog articles. Okay, I wrote one when I broke my leg a few years ago.
Yep.
It got the most likes I've ever seen on any of my social media. Like,
So the whole like if it bleeds, it leads sort of thing. People
Yeah.
people like the struggle piece.
uh-huh.
Do you think they also like to see you accomplish?
Yeah, well, that's why I do it as well, just so I can get through the hard stuff and just say, look, I did it.
Yeah.
You're
Yeah.
a bragger, aren't you?
Yeah, I am.
Okay, so surfing, and I've seen your surfing videos. So surfing, rock climbing, abseiling.
Yeah.
What's on your bucket list? What would you love to do you haven't done yet?
Oh, mate, I've just got a bucket list like a mile long. Oh, yes, my public art. I missed out on putting my application in because I was just finished painting my piano at home.
And if you're not quite sure what that is, go and check out Bree-Arne's YouTube channel, which is if you Google.
If you just put Bree-Arne Manley in, it should come
it
up.
does come up, and there's a beautiful piano you've painted. So you want to do some more public art?
Yeah, I thought it would be really cool if we made like a people are giving away pianos that they don't use because they just can't get rid of them. I would like to paint one, or multiple ones, however, whatever.
Yeah.
And put it in a public space, but make it accessible so that anybody can use it. So if maybe we got a pianola and then put hand paddles on the foot pedals and had that sort of thing so they could still use it.
And still make music wherever they are.
Yeah.
Love it, love it. I thought before when I said what's on your bucket list, I thought you were going to say skydiving.
I've already done it.
Oh. Okay.
And then my son made me promise I would never do it again. I think he's starting to realise about his mum's mortality. So stop doing stuff where I could get hurt or die.
Yeah. I'm sure all family members are a bit like that. Leanne, I'm going to come across to you now, and I know that you've got a big passion piece about accessible accommodation whilst, Bree-Arne is out there being an experience collector. What are you collecting?
It's interesting. I'm collecting lots of photos of my family, my growing family, but I'm also, I suppose, still continuing to try and collect experiences in the form of travelling, and which includes staying in accommodation, and I don't know. That's a very interesting question, that one.
Well, I was leading into this piece that you are looking to. You are generating reviews, aren't you, and lists of accessible accommodation.
Yes.
That's a real passion of yours.
Yes, yeah, and accessible venues. I do accessibility reviews on my blog as well. For at the moment, it's been mostly around the Ballerine in Geelong, on restaurants and mainly restaurants and dining places, but also accommodation to stay in. So, and I work pretty closely with the actual website set up by my friend, accessibleaccommodation.com, and she lists a bazillion. Now there's well over 220 or something around Australia accessible properties, where she rates them in 3 different categories, whether you're an independent wheelchair user, assisted wheelchair user, or independent ambulatory, or ambulatory but with assisted walker.
Yeah.
And that's fantastic. And I've actually, Gary and I, my husband and I, we're just about to embark on a 3-week holiday up from here up to Coochie-Mudlow Island and down again, predominantly using all of the properties on accessibleaccommodation.com, and I'm really looking forward to highlighting that and sharing that through the socials. And I'm kind of thinking about picking up a bit of YouTube action, but I'm not sure.
Well, maybe Bree-Arne can help you with that.
Yes, that's right. Yeah, yeah, exactly.
And when you sort of talk about you're heading and you're going to do that trip up to Queensland, which so many Victorians do, that Hume Highway trek. Do people is the experience that people who are living potentially with a disability, maybe they're a wheelchair user or not, do they stop travelling because of because of the inaccessibility of accommodation? What's the issue there?
There's a lot of issues. it is definitely the inaccessibility of accommodation. It's the difficulty. It's definitely not as relaxing as any other holiday, when you don't have, when you're non-disabled. It's also the fear, being away from maybe your hospital, your sort of services that are set up for you at home.
Yep.
Then there's so many things that come into play, fatigue and that sort of thing. So there's a worry that, you're not going to enjoy it. There's the expense. And this is something, the main reason we're doing this, although we do want to go to a lot of these towns, even though a lot of them we've been to before, is because going on a plane for me now is absolutely not going to be comfortable, and it is hugely scary too, because you just hear so many stories of wheelchairs being broken.
Yes.
And I've been lucky. The last trip we were on was to Hawaii when I first had the power chair, but I could transfer with Gary's help, like him lifting me. Now that's impossible. And I was treated beautifully, but that's also the other reason. A lot of people go on day trips now, or car trips, sorry, so, weekends maybe. They tend to stay, people with disabilities, especially new disabilities, tend to stay within a couple of hours of home. That's a stat that's around as well. So there is just a lot more kind of fear and a bit more. I've never been an anxious person, but there is definitely that worry and anxiety about going away, full stop.
And so part of the work that you're doing is to broaden people's horizons, I suppose. So give them, look at what we're doing, look what's out there, and they can get out there and do it as well. Fantastic.
Yes.
Leanne, Bree-Arne, Ainsley, thank you so much for being with me this morning to highlight the fantastic podcast from the outskirts, but also to just enjoy a bit of banter and a bit of carry on. Thank you so much.
Thank you. No worries.
Thank you.
It's been wonderful to have you here.
And like I say every single week, I don't know how it happens, but 11 o'clock comes way too soon. And anyone that has been around will know that this music means that it's time. It's time for me to wind up and say goodbye. But not before I tell you that next week we have another fantastic show. I'm going to leave it as a surprise because there's actually so much I can't even tell you what's going to be on. But if you are interested in finding out more about from the outskirts, check out Women with Disabilities Victoria. You can find information there. If you're interested in Lip Timber Foundation, go and check out the website and go to my Instagram, Loretta.Hart, and put some money in my account. Go for it. Okay, we're out. Woo! Woo!
I like what you said about the bleed thing.
The which bit?
The bleed thing.
Bleed.
Like about the content. You know how I said about the leg break? You know how I said leg break got like this likes, and you said something about something bleed.
Did I?
Yeah.
If it leads, it bleeds.
That,
It bleeds, it leads, yeah.
Yeah.
It's my favourite part of the show.
Another one down.
The best part of my week is 11 o'clock on Wednesday mornings. I was like, whew! I did it! Oh, shit, Leanne. Hello, Leanne, are you still there? Oh, that's hilarious. I was sitting here dancing to the music and I forgot you're still on the line.